After the tone, please record your name. Has joined the conference.
Or DMIRS. My name is Tony Carson, and I'm a pharmacist and a pharmacy advisor at NHS England London region, and also supporting the National Pharmacy Integration Programme. This webinar is primarily aimed at community pharmacists, including locum pharmacists and community pharmacy staff in London. So this just outlines briefly what I'm going to cover through the next slide. So hopefully I'll run through, explain what DMIRS is, give you an idea, an overview of what's happening in London, what it means for community pharmacy, and talk through the patient pathway. We'll also mention the IT platform, which is going to support the delivery of this service, which is called Sonar, and then touching a little bit about reporting, and then some of the practical details on signing up for the service. So what is DMIRS? So this gives you an idea of what currently happens when someone contacts NHS 111, mainly by telephone, although currently NHS 111 online is being rolled out. But either way, they get to a call centre or a handler, and what is then used is a clinical decision support mechanism called NHS Pathways. And this is used by the call handlers, or if it's online, it will help the online inquiry get to the point. So the call handlers are normally not clinicians, although in most or a lot of 111 providers, they are developing what's called an integrated urgent care hub, which will have clinical staff, including pharmacists there. So some of these calls or queries may go through this clinical assessment service, but not all of them. But either, whatever happens, if there is a need, then the call is then sent to a variety of different areas, and that's what puts the call or sends the call to those areas is what's called the disposition. And there is a hierarchy where the most urgent ones go to an emergency department, an A&E, some go to GP out-of-hours services. But as you see, there is an attempt to channel shift, which is to actually move people away from the areas of real high acuity or high need down to areas where they can be treated appropriately, particularly if actually the issue that they're phoning for or contacting is of low need. So what we're trying to achieve here with this service is, with saying we've got the call that comes into 111, comes into the call handlers, and for these we're calling what are mainly low acuity, or what the normal term is a minor ailment. The current referral for most of these would end up in an electronic message being sent to a GP appointment at an out-of-hours service, or a GP appointment in ours. What we're proposing to do is to, instead of that, is to send an electronic message to a community pharmacy. And so within that, the expectation is that the community pharmacist, and this is important that the service, it has to be the pharmacist that would see the patient, but the referral comes in to the pharmacy from 111, and the pharmacist consults with the patient in a consultation room, checks to see if there are any issues, etc., and there is a standardized system for recording that which is also helps in evaluation. And we'll touch a little bit further around what happens in the community pharmacy later on. The things which are highlighted in the asterisks are things which currently don't happen in a community pharmacy. There are some things which do currently happen which are covered within your pharmacy essential services. And so this channel shift to move patients from a GP appointment to a community pharmacy is designed to decrease pressure on the whole of the urgent care system. So it allows where it really needs the skills and clinical knowledge, etc., of a GP to see the patients that need those and shift patients who don't need to but can be safely seen in a community pharmacy to that community pharmacy. It's not new. It is built on a pilot which has been running in the northeast of England since December 2017, and we'll cover that a little bit more about the findings from that. An important element is that we are testing that referral, that digital referral, from 111 to community pharmacies. And overall, what we're trying to do is achieve a high-volume channel shift away from those urgent care settings to other settings where it can still be managed safely. The whole process has involved engagement with a wide range of stakeholders, and it is also dependent very much on the NHS 111 Directory of Services, or DOS, but those are accurate. And again, we'll touch on that a little bit later on. The process also allows for a pharmacy to escalate a patient where the pharmacist feels they can't deal with it but need to refer it to someone who can do. And again, we can touch on that. And the referral system that we're talking about, the ITK message, is something which has already been tested in the northeast of England. And we'll touch on training, but I think it's important at this point to emphasise that these are patients who come into a community pharmacy on a day-to-day basis, and a pharmacist doesn't need any additional clinical skills to be able to manage those patients. However, we are going to touch later on to refer to some things which might ensure that you are able to, if you feel you need to, review your clinical skills. So on this slide, you'll see you can click on a link to a video which has been produced by the North East of England team for the community pharmacy team. Important to highlight that at the time the service was called the Community Pharmacy Referral Service, or CPRS, and there will be frequent references to that in the video, but the name has now been changed to DMIRS, the Digital Minor Illness Referral Service, but it is the same service. There are also some other references that are specific to the North East scheme, but overall it gives a very useful background to the DMIRS scheme, and I would really, really encourage you to have a click on it and have a look at the video. It lasts for about 8 minutes, and if you want to do it now or do it at a later point, please feel free to do so. So we mentioned the scheme in the North East, and I'm going to present a very high level of findings from the evaluation of that service. And really the service was evaluated over a 6-month period. It is still operating, but these are findings based on that period of time, and I think it's fair to say that the number of referrals have been increasing since. Okay, sorry about that delay. So overall, this covers the numbers of people who actually called in to the service was just under 25,000 people who called in. Of those in that period, around just under 7,500 were referred to the DMIRS service, and the remaining 18,000 or odd were sent elsewhere. A small number of these, at the time of the evaluation, were still in progress, i.e. that they hadn't been completed, so there were still patients who still had to be seen by the pharmacist. And then the rest, so it says contacted by pharmacists, but that really means that's the percentage we're looking at of the ones that actually ended up being referred to the pharmacist and in some way have been completed. Of those, 64% ended up being seen in the pharmacy for their consultation. And I will talk through the pathway, which will help explain why some of these figures. But the 34.3% were people on the right-hand side who were not seen in the pharmacy, and that's for a variety of reasons. And some of the information we haven't been able to collect properly because of the way it was recorded. One of the things we're learning in the pilot is to better record these. So when it says others, the 43%, we will still need to investigate that. The highest other number were the 23.1%. That's people who were referred in, but actually ended up not making any contact with the pharmacy. That might sound as a high number, but actually we know from other 111 services, and NUMSAS is an example, that actually about 20% of patients who are referred from 111 to any service just do not turn up, and that's their choice. They may end up have gone somewhere else, and they may end up, in this case, they just felt better. But the uncontactable were ones who the pharmacy tried to contact and could not get any response. Others, people have said they actually felt better and they didn't need to go. So there's a whole variety of reasons why. And part of the service that we want to do is better understand why people don't turn up or end up not being seen in the pharmacy. So from that 64% of people seen in the pharmacy, a large number were completed by the pharmacist, but some of them were escalated to another service. And in this slide, I'll talk a bit more about that. So, as we said, just under 5,000 completed consultations in the pharmacy. So those were the ones that the pharmacist saw and were either able to complete or to pass on to another service. Of those, about a third were absolutely managed just by the pharmacist giving advice and only advice. Just under a third were given advice and they ended up purchasing over-the-counter medicine. Just under 12% were escalated back to NHS 111 to their clinical assessment service by the pharmacist, and that is probably to make an urgent appointment or an appointment with the GP out of our service. And about the same number were supported to make an appointment with their own GP. And 5% ended up being referred into a local minor ailment service. And it might be helpful to point out at this stage that the service covered 10 CCGs, clinical commissioning groups, in the northeast of England. They were the ones who commissioned services like minor ailments. Of those 10, 8 of them did actually commission a local minor ailment service. So it is really interesting that only 5% actually ended up in a minor ailment service. So it shows the vast majority, over about 95%, are managed without being referred into a local minor ailment service. And a very small number, the pharmacy ended up calling 999. So it does show that the vast majority are able to be treated in the pharmacy. Some need to be escalated to another service. But interestingly, the pharmacy did have to call 999. And one example of that, to sort of give an idea of how, through the pathway, that actually, at the end of the day, a pharmacist does need to make a clinical decision. And the example of this was that a patient had phoned 111 and complained of a headache, and the call handler had taken the patient through the algorithms that got to the point to say, send the patient to a community pharmacy. And the patient came into the community pharmacy, and the pharmacist started the consultation, discovered that the patient had actually been in a boxing fight the night before and hadn't actually said that to the call handler. And on examination, the pharmacist was concerned that there could have been a brain hemorrhage and called 999 immediately. And as far as aware, the patient was managed in the A&E. But it does highlight that you can come across some conditions that you have to refer on to an urgent service. But if we go on to what were the symptoms of the patients who came in, and I think this really does show and emphasize back to you that the vast majority of these patients are patients you see in a pharmacy on a day-to-day basis, and the conditions and the symptoms they've got are conditions and symptoms that you see every day, you manage safely in your pharmacy, and if you can't manage, you already refer those on to other services. So just emphasising, this is not new in terms of the patients you are likely to be seeing. And as a result of the evaluation, it's highlighted that, yes, it appears to be a safe and effective way of shifting patients into pharmacy away from those GP appointments, but it recognises that there are particular demographic issues in the northeast of England. There's particular issues about how it's set up, the fact it's got a single 111 provider, which is an ambulance service. It's got a different sort of demography, etc. It's been agreed to actually test and pilot it in 3 other sites. So those sites are in the East Midlands, which is an area which is covered by a single 111 provider called Derby Health United. So that includes cities and market towns, cities like Nottingham and Leicester, but also includes rural areas and small towns and villages. It will also be going to London, and London has got 4 111 providers. We'll talk a bit more about the complexity of that. And then Devon, which is, again, mainly very rural with some seaside towns, areas which get an influx of people, of tourists, particularly at holiday times, etc. So again, a different setup. And it also has a single 111 provider as well. So the aim is to pilot the service, the same service, across all of these areas and to evaluate them and then look to see, can we look to inform what might happen afterwards. So just a little bit of context around NHS England London region and the commissioning landscape. And just as a background, there's a number of pathways that have been developed within London, mainly part of national schemes. So we've had the deployment of pharmacists in general practice that support the management of appointments for minor illness and improving the signposting of patients to community pharmacies for management of self-care. We've had now annual national campaigns to increase the awareness of community pharmacy teams to the public and encouraging people to use pharmacies as the first port of call for minor conditions. We've also seen the deployment of pharmacists into integrated urgent care hubs, where roles include improving patient access to medicines and supporting advice throughout a pause period, and again, enabling self-care and self-management of conditions. And then, of course, now we're going to introduce DMIRS. So in London, we the intention is that this is a pan-London offer to ensure equity of access. It is going to be funded partly by the Pharmacy Integration Fund, the national fund, so that will fund 2 of the NHS 111 providers in London, which covers 3 of the STPs, and NHS England London region will fund the remainder, and that's to ensure that pan-London. If you've heard the video from the North East, you'll have heard of the complexity in the North East. But in London, the complexity is so much more. We've got a population of over 8 million. We have got, as we said, we've got 4 111 providers. We've got 32 clinical commissioning groups. We've got 5 STP areas. We've got approximately 1,860 community pharmacies. So it is a large area, and we've got a large number of key stakeholders to work with to enable this to be deployed and implemented successfully. We anticipate a phased rollout over a small amount of time sometime in November. The date is a little bit variable because it does depend on a number of factors. And there is also discussions as well around an enhancement on the DMIRS, and we'll touch on that a little bit later. So what does it look like? It's like NUMSAS in terms of, and NUMSAS, most of you will know, is the urgent medicines supply service that has been piloted as an advanced service nationally, initially to run to March 2017, but it has been extended and now is running until March 2019. And we've taken a lot of learning from that, because NUMSAS is also about a referral from 111 to a community pharmacy. But in most areas, that is currently done through NHS Mail. This time we are using an electronic message, which is called the Interoperability Toolkit, or the ITK. So that's an automatic message. So there's no need for an additional phone call with the patient or the one-on-call handler, but there is an issue about the pharmacist needing to follow up people who don't attend. It is possible. We are currently basing this on 38 conditions which have been tested in the North East, and those are what we call the low acuity or minor illness conditions. It is possible that over time we may get a broader case mix and those might be developed. But at this moment in time, we are testing the same conditions that have been tested in the North East. One of the things the evaluation did highlight was that there was a need to have a more robust escalation route, and so we have now developed what we're calling the StarRate. So, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, but basically it will enable you to be able to be fast-tracked if you need to get support, to dial 111 and fast-track to be able to speak to another healthcare professional. And the sending of the post-event message or the GP notification following the consultation will be automated. It will still require going from your email box to a GP email box, but the majority of those will be done automatically. So we've mentioned the go-live date. We've got on this slide to be confirmed, and part of that is that the dates have changed a number of times, and they are dependent on a number of factors, but we are planning for and very much confident that they will go live in mid-November. Community pharmacies that are registered to provide the service will be notified before the service goes live in their area. Hopefully by the time you're watching this webinar, it will be already live in your area. And this just gives you, this slide gives you the 111 providers that covers each area. So you've got in North Central London and Inner Northwest London, you've got a provider called LCW. London, Chelsea and Westminster, but covers wider than Chelsea, Westminster. You've got in the northeast of London and the southeast of London, you've got the London Ambulance Service, or LAS. In outer northwest London, you've got Care UK, and in southwest London, you've got Vocare. So I've said 4 different 111 providers, an ambulance service, the biggest ambulance service in the country, London Ambulance Service, covering 2 large areas, and you've got some national services like Vocare and Care UK, and then you've got another very London-specific provider, LCW. So this webinar is actually a recording of what was presented in a series of 5 engagement events across London in October. And in this part, this was what was done by one or representative of the local pharmaceutical committees, or the LPCs. So I'm going to talk to their slides and use the script that they've actually provided and they used on the evening. So the key point that they'd like you to take from this slide is an understanding of how patient interactions with the NHS is changing. Patients will interact with the NHS more and more in a digital world. NHS 111 will be the key digital gateway for patients to access the bricks and mortar parts of the NHS, and that will include community pharmacy. For this reason, it's important every community pharmacist understand this new digital environment and is engaged with the NHS 111. You will already have read the headlines in the papers about the pressures on A&E every winter. Don't underestimate the impact you as community pharmacists can have on this and just how key you are. This slide describes what a really important report called the Cure Report said about channel shift. This is a big ticket item for the NHS, and community pharmacy is the route the NHS thinks can deliver it. So this is a huge opportunity for community pharmacy. Channel shift means moving millions of people nationally from a few low capacity, high cost to the NHS, sites such as hospitals, to high capacity, lower cost to NHS sites such as community pharmacy network. This is all about the right care at the right place. Sorry, I should have said, look at the actual numbers in the boxes in red. 40% of patients that attend A&E don't require any treatment. 20% of all GP consultations are for minor conditions. There are 438 million health-related visits to community pharmacy each year. These are huge numbers, so the impact community pharmacy can have is massive. The size of the prize is millions of patients being directed to community pharmacy. This slide emphasizes just how important community pharmacy is in the context of urgent care. This is why community pharmacy can make a huge impact on winter pressures and urgent care pressures. I'd really like you to appreciate this line. Community pharmacy is absolutely the biggest walk-in centre in the entire NHS estate. This line summarises just how important community pharmacy is. The LPC would also like to make the point here that although it's not a requirement of the SLA to cover the education and training courses that are highlighted on the slide, it's really important for community pharmacy to deliver this clinical service. And of course, this kind of education and training is part of a pharmacist's ongoing professional development. It's worth noting that actually most community pharmacists will have already done the 3 online CPD courses in this slide, as they are needed for other services as part of the quality payment requirement. In addition, lots of community pharmacies in London will have attended the assessment skills courses on the slide that Health Education England funded. So if we start now to look at the patient pathway, i.e. the pathway from the patient from when they contact 111 and the involvement with the directory of services. So this is the bit in red, which is the area we're going to focus on. And it really is, I'll talk you through, it's a busy slide. So in the slide, basically, the patient will contact 111 and a call handler takes the caller through the usual NHS pathways assessment. Now, as we've mentioned, the call handler is not clinically trained, but this assessment is quite a long process. There's approximately 20 stages that the call handler has to go through to get to the point that if it ends in a low urgency referral, which is normally within 24 hours or longer, for a low acuity condition, i.e. a minor ailment, rather than being referred with the current route to a GP appointment, the system will select the 2 nearest DMIRS pharmacies and they are offered to the caller. It's up to the caller whether they actually want to see a pharmacy, and we know that quite a number say no, they want to go elsewhere. But where they select, the caller selects one of these 2 pharmacies, then it's digital. We've mentioned the ITK referrer is sent to that pharmacy, and a message is also sent to the caller's GP to tell the GP that the patient has contacted 111 and has been referred on. The call handler is also asked the caller to say that NHS 111 has sent them when they go into the pharmacy, so that should be a prompt to the pharmacy staff to check for a referral in Sonar. We do know from the northeast of England that in sometimes the patient didn't say that, and the patient got treated, etc., by the pharmacist, and then the pharmacist didn't realise, or the pharmacy staff hadn't told, the pharmacist didn't realise that the patient had already been in, contacted the patient, and the patient said, oh, I've already been in. So we have reinforced the training and this element to call handlers. We've got a video which has been used to help brief the call handlers about this. And most of you should be aware of the Directory of Services, so the DOS. It's something which, if you're involved or have participated in the quality payment scheme, you will be absolutely aware that part of that is around updating your DOS profile. So in this case, an additional DOS profile is created for each London pharmacy that has registered with the DMIRS via the BSL website, and we'll touch on that later, and basically has had its DMIRS functionality switched on by Sonar. The DOS profile contains the usual open times for the pharmacy. There'll be a consistent clinical profile for London. It will contain the usual details, so the ODS code for the pharmacy, which is used by Sonar to send the referral to the correct place, and the shared access email address that the pharmacy has registered with, which is the only to be used to send the referral that the ITK1 fields, but is also used a little bit later on for the GP notification. You will also have access to a tool called MyDOS, and that's a search tool, and it will help if a patient needs to be referred to their GP. If you need to find details of that GP, you will also be able to use that tool to find the bypass phone number of a patient's registered GP, which will help you if you need to contact that patient's GP. More details of MyDOS will be sent out to pharmacies, and there will be a link to MyDOS on the Sonar platform. And there's this slide, just if you can have a look at it, it gives you some details of the search menu that you will be able to use once you've got access to it. So the next bit then is what the patient pathway with respect to what happens with the community pharmacy. And so in the patient flow diagram that I'd showed you, and by the way, this is also within the service specification, so you can also have a look at that. That will also be on the Sonar website. But we're looking here at this area in red, i.e. the process in the pharmacy. So, as we've mentioned before, the patient should inform you that they have been sent by 8111 and the referral details will be in the Sonar system. A consultation will then be undertaken, given the appropriate advice around self-care and prevention, or refer them to another health professional. So some key points. It must be a face-to-face consultation, and the majority we expect these to be in the pharmacy consultation room. It must be with a pharmacist, so it's not with a pharmacy staff or a technician. It is important that this is done by a pharmacist. And you must use the Sonar platform during the consultation. This is for a number of reasons. One, it allows real-time capture of the information. There are mandatory fields that you must complete. This enables, particularly for the evaluation, that we are consistently collecting the right information and the same information across all of the sites. However, it is being designed to be useful and easy for patient or pharmacists to use. And the pharmacist has to ensure that any red flags are recognised and responded to as part of the consultation process. And if you're not aware of what we call the clinical knowledge summaries at NICE, there's a link at the bottom of those to them, and we would strongly recommend you to actually go to that link and familiarise yourselves with how they are set up. They contain really helpful information. They are there as summaries, but they do highlight those critical, those red flags, those things that you need to be looking out for that may require an escalation. And, sorry, to go back, if the ITK is not received for that particular message, so you go into the Sonar system and you don't find the ITK message, there are two things you can do. The first one is check your NHS mail, the shared NHS mailbox, because that is the backup. So if for some reason the ITK message has failed, 111 will send the referral to that NHS mailbox. You will then be able to take that referral and manually enter the patient details rather than it won't be pre-populated onto the Sonar platform, but then you follow the consultation as you would normally do. If you don't see it in the mailbox, then you would call 111 to confirm if that referral was actually made, and if appropriate, to confirm the patient's NHS number and GP details and request either the ITK is sent through, or if they can't do that, make sure please send the NHS mail. As always, with any email, make sure you always check the junk mail just in case it has gone into that box. So you've done your consultation. The endpoints or the outcomes of that may be advice only. We've seen from the northeast of England that about a third of them end up in that, or advice and sale of over-the-counter medicine or pharmacy medicine. And again, we know from the northeast about a third or just under a third end up in that. There are some minor ailment schemes in London. Where those are commissioned by NHS England, then you will be able to refer a patient into those and supply a medicine if it's according to the service specification and the policy within the minor ailment service. We will be sending more information to pharmacies about that. You will also then be able to obtain advice, and you can contact either the patient's own GP, or if you need to, you can, and you find that information if you haven't already got it through MyDoc or other directories of services. or if it's out of hours, then it would be through the 111 and using the star 8, which we'll talk about in a moment. And if it's really urgent, it could be to A&E, 999, but you may also end up referring to a dentist, an optometrist, an optician, a physiotherapist, etc. So, sorry, there's a slight typo in this. So the top of it says star 7, and in fact it is star 8. So it's basically when you dial 111, you will hear if you want to contact this, do star 1. If you want to contact something else, star 2. It will say if you're a community pharmacist and you need to speak to a clinician or a healthcare professional, please press star 8. So that's where you need to escalate and or you need to get advice. So that's the quickest way to get the advice if you can't get through to the patient's GP. This infographic prompt sheet will be available on Sonar, and we'll make sure it's accurate. And please note there will be an opportunity to give feedback on this service. So we've mentioned and talked about people who do not attend, and we've mentioned that we expect that there will be around 20% of people who don't make contact. So that could be for a variety of reasons. So this is a standard policy for services that 111 refers to, that if the patient hasn't contacted, then you need to make attempts. So what we're advising here is that if they haven't contacted you within 12 hours of the referral, or if no contact is made by the end of the next working, or at the end of the day. So we expect in the service level agreement says you should be checking your Sonar system before the end of the day to check to see if the patient hasn't contacted and if you've got a referral. So the expectation is that you make 3 attempts to contact that patient, at least 10 minutes apart. So that means that the patient is, say, on another phone call or something like that, you're not making 3 calls very rapidly. You're allowing some time for a patient to reasonably be able to be contacted. If no contact is made during the next working day, then the pharmacist should close the referral via the Sonar, and there will be the ability to say no intervention made. We've mentioned that the service is going to be evaluated. As part of that, there will be a patient survey, and the Sonar platform will bring you through to asking the patient for consent to provide or to participate in the survey. It will be done in a number of ways. The preferred method is that the patient gives you a mobile number, and if they give you that, then the Sonar system will automatically send a text with the link to the website for the survey, and there will be the ability for the Sonar to send prompt text as well. Important to say that the responses to the survey will not be linked to any individual patient identifiable information. If the patient doesn't have a mobile phone number but does have access to the internet, then the Sonar system will allow you to print off a sheet that you can give to the patient with the actual link to the website. Hopefully, these will be the 2 ways that the patient survey will be accessed, and that will hopefully save the pharmacist from having to complete the survey or to do anything. However, if the patient doesn't have a mobile phone number, doesn't have access to the internet, and still wants to participate in the survey, then you'll be able to print off a survey for them to complete and return to you to upload onto the website. Hopefully that would be a very small number. So just a very quick mention of the IT platform we're using, which is Sonar Informatics. The vast majority of you will be very familiar with it if you have used the flu vaccination service in London over the last 4 years. The majority of pharmacies in London have done so, and Sonar has been the platform that has delivered that. So most people are very familiar with it. Once you are being a pharmacy has registered with the BSA and information has gone to the NHS England team to approve those pharmacies. Those details will go to Sonar. Sonar will then initiate the process to allowing the pharmacy to access the service. It will be completely support the referral process, capture the information, and the Sonar will also manage the administration for pharmacies around remuneration and payment. There will also be a link on the website to the SLA, and it will also give details of getting back to the BSA website if you need to. Sonar will confirm your access and registration. It will give details of how to do that and how to log on, and it will also be quite easy to follow through about submitting a new record when you open. It will also allow you to be able to report an adverse drug event or indeed any incident. And if you do need to contact Sonar, then the contact details are on the slide. So just a quick mention on the reporting, and this is about the specific things that we would like the pharmacist to report. One is, as well as any adverse event, which of course you should be reporting anyway, but any other incident that you feel is important to report. So a common one might be, we've talked about if the IT care message hasn't come through, that is an incident. So as well as managing that and addressing it, you need to report that back so we can actually follow that up. But on top of that, you will have the opportunity on the website to give immediate feedback. Just, it could be negative, problem with the service, or things you don't like about it, things you could suggest that could improve it, or it could be positive. It could be giving us some really helpful real-time feedback of something that has gone really well. So you'll be able to do both the incidents and the feedback on the Sonar website, and it'll make it very easy. Hopefully you don't receive any, but if you do receive any complaints from a patient about it, then you would follow the NHS complaints procedure, which you or staff in the pharmacy should know. Every community pharmacy should have a dedicated complaints manager. So we're just getting now towards the end of it. So to sign up for DMIRS, and basically the sign up is through the BSA website. Registration actually opened on the 28th of September. By the 8th of November, over 1,100 pharmacies in London, that's 1,100 out of 1,860, have already registered. So it's been a very high uptake, but it's still open to those pharmacies who happen to still register. And you would be registering and confirming that you're going to provide the service until March 2019, etc. The details in the service specification. So we've mentioned March 2019. That's when the national pilot in these 4 areas are due to run to. But NHS England in London region has spoken with Pharmacy London and the North East London LPC and other areas and stakeholders, and at this point in time we are saying that we may well choose to extend the scheme up to the following year, the following March, but that would be subject to a number of things and any changes to the national commissioning and the national community pharmacy contractual framework. So in terms of the service level agreement, it's an online sign-up, so there's no need to return a signed SLA to NHS England. The pharmacy in signing up is saying that they are going to follow the terms of the SLA and they're going to follow it. It can be downloaded from the BSA website, but also it will be on the Sonar platform. Important that the service is required to be provided by the pharmacy for all of the opening hours. And that includes extended hours in the evenings, or the weekend, or on a Sunday, whatever hours you're normally open, and also if you open on a bank holiday, then it should be provided. And for that reason, it's really essential that pharmacist locums are fully briefed and should be able to deliver the service. One of the main complaints we get from non-staff, from one-on-one providers, is that too often referrals into a pharmacy can't be managed because there is a locum there who A, knows nothing about the service, or is aware of the service but hasn't been given access to the shared email account. So it's really important that locums are briefed, and it doesn't have to be a locum that has access to the shared email account, but you do need to have someone on duty throughout the working hours who does have access to that email account. So the remuneration, and this is mirrors what has been agreed in the North East of England, is that it's £14 for consultation for someone who's seen in the pharmacy, and that's really important. The patient has to be seen in the pharmacy to make that claim. And that £14 is primarily covering the administration with the pilot, the data collection we're asking you to do, as well as the consultation. As mentioned, the payment for DMIRS will be based on the information recorded in Sonar, so it's automatic, and it will be paid through the BSA under the local payment scheme, and it will come up under local payment scheme number 9. So that brings me to the end of this webinar. There are some contact details here if you've got further inquiries, if you've got problems registering, and if you've got any inquiries about the service, you've got the local DMIRS email address, which is dedicated to DMIRS, so don't send it to the other NHS England London region email addresses, send them to that england.lung-dmirs@nhs.net. If you've got any queries about the pharmacy integration DMIRS, so the national bit, then send it to that england.pharmacy integration. If your pharmacy is still struggling or haven't got a shared NHS email account, it is relatively straightforward. A lot of it is automated and automatic, and that's the portal to go to get that address. Important, please check that you don't already have an address. And then finally, there's the link to that North East of England YouTube that we've given a link earlier on to as well. So hopefully I've given you that introduction and overview of the DMIRS. I hope that you're going to provide the service, and I hope that we get some feedback from yourselves as the service is implemented and expands. Thank you very much.